Today, we're diving deep into one of the most significant moments in modern history. The causes of World War I, often called the Great War. This conflict changed the world forever, but it didn't happen overnight. Instead, it was the result of a complex web of events, alliances, and ideologies that built up over decades. If you're passionate about history, love exploring pivotal events like this, and want to learn more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Power, Politics, and Past for more fascinating content. Now, let's unravel the story behind the causes of World War I and understand how the world was plunged into a war that shaped the course of history. Setting the stage, Europe in the early 20th century. Before we dive into the main causes, let's take a moment to understand the world in the early 1900s. Europe was at the center of global power, with countries like Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and Austria-Hungary controlling vast empires that spanned continents. While there was a sense of progress and modernization, beneath the surface, tensions were brewing. These tensions were driven by competing interests, cultural rivalries, and a fierce desire to dominate the world stage. Militarism. Preparing for war. One of the key factors leading to World War I was militarism. Militarism refers to the belief that a nation's strength is directly tied to the size and power of its military. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, European countries were locked in an arms race, building massive armies and navies. Germany, in particular, was eager to challenge Britain's dominance at sea, and the two countries engaged in a naval race that saw the creation of massive battleships like the Dreadnought. This arms race wasn't just about equipment. It created a mindset that war was not only inevitable but also a way to prove national superiority. Military leaders gained significant influence over political decisions, and countries began planning detailed strategies, like Germany's Schlieffen Plan, which aimed to quickly defeat France before turning to Russia in the event of war. Militarism created a culture of paranoia, where nations were ready to act aggressively at the slightest provocation. Alliances. A house of cards. The alliance system in Europe was another major factor. By the early 1900s, Europe was divided into two powerful blocs: the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The Triple Entente, France, Russia, and Britain. These alliances were designed to maintain peace by creating a balance of power, but they ended up having the opposite effect. If one country went to war, its allies were obligated to join, turning a small conflict into a global one. For example, Austria-Hungary's declaration of war on Serbia in 1914 pulled in Russia, which in turn brought in Germany, France, and Britain. The alliances turned Europe into a ticking time bomb, where any spark could lead to widespread war. Imperialism. Competing for global dominance. Another major cause of World War I was imperialism, or the competition for colonies and global dominance. By the early 20th century, most of Africa and parts of Asia had been colonized by European powers. Britain and France had the largest empires, but Germany and Italy, which unified much later, wanted a bigger share of the pie. This competition led to tensions, as countries vied for resources, markets, and strategic territories. For instance, Germany's plan to build a railway from Berlin to Baghdad threatened British and Russian interests in the Middle East. Meanwhile, France and Germany clashed over control of Morocco in the early 1900s, further straining relations. Imperialism made international relations more contentious, as nations pursued their own agendas at the expense of others. Nationalism. Pride and prejudice. Nationalism, or intense pride in one's country, played a huge role in escalating tensions. In some cases, nationalism fueled the desire for independence, especially in the Balkans. The region, controlled by Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, was home to many ethnic groups who wanted their own nations. Serbia, for instance, aimed to unite all Slavic peoples under its leadership, directly challenging Austria-Hungary's authority. In other cases, nationalism created rivalries between major powers. Germany was eager to prove its dominance, especially against Britain and France, while France sought revenge for its defeat in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. National pride made it difficult for leaders to back down in conflicts, as they feared looking weak on the world stage. Key spark. Assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. While the underlying causes created the conditions for war, the immediate spark came on June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, a member of a Serbian nationalist group called the Black Hand. The assassination was driven by the desire for Slavic independence, but it set off a chain reaction of events. Austria-Hungary, backed by Germany, issued an ultimatum to Serbia with harsh demands. When Serbia partially rejected the ultimatum, Austria-Hungary declared war on July 28, 1914. Within days, Russia mobilized to defend Serbia, Germany declared war on Russia, and France and Britain were drawn in through their alliances. What could have been a regional conflict spiraled into a global war. Additional crises and long-building tensions. It's important to note that the assassination was not an isolated event. Several crises in the years leading up to 1914 had already strained relations between nations. The First and Second Balkan Wars, fought between 1912 and 1913, destabilized the region and increased tensions between Austria-Hungary, Serbia, and Russia. Meanwhile, disputes over colonial territories, like the Moroccan crises, further polarized Europe. These events weakened trust between nations and made leaders more likely to resort to force rather than diplomacy. The combination of unresolved tensions, military planning, and rigid alliances made it almost impossible to stop the slide into war once the spark was lit. The causes of World War I were deeply interconnected, creating a perfect storm that erupted in 1914. Militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism set the stage, while the assassination of Franz Ferdinand was the catalyst that brought decades of tension to a boiling point. Understanding these causes helps us see how fragile peace can be when nations prioritize power over diplomacy. Thank you for watching 3PPP. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the causes of World War I, hit the like button and subscribe for more incredible history content. What do you think was the most significant cause of the war? Let us know in the comments below. Stay tuned for more fascinating stories from history, politics, and beyond. Until next time, this is Power, Politics, and Past signing off.